Welcome into Black and Gold Insider. This is the show where we get to know the members of the Black and Gold a little bit better. I am Max Bretos, and as some of you know, some of you may not know, LAFC have an extensive, multi-layer, multifaceted, first-class staff, and that includes the LAFC performance nutritionist, Connor Spencer, who joins us on the show today. Connor, I'm excited about this conversation because as people are going to find out, this is a very important role so that players can have peak performance, peak recovery in a very complex league. So I'm going to start it there so we can kind of get down to brass tacks. An important member of the staff, tell us what you do for the club. What is the performance nutritionist?
Yeah, thanks, Max. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so really my role as the performance nutritionist here is really anything that relates to food for our guys. So what I'm mostly interested in is figuring out making sure our guys are eating the right type of food at the right time and in the right amount, especially during the training week, of course, when we travel, and then very most importantly, in and around match days.
And as I said, it's a complex league, lots of travel. You could be going high altitude. You go be in the heat. You're going to the cold. A league like no other. I'm just curious, this element of the staff, this element of what you can provide for players, I feel like it's pretty new. What was kind of like that breakthrough where teams were saying, all right, we got to make sure, certainly under our watch, that these players are putting in their body the right things because it's going to make a difference on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it from a historical perspective where I think it is relatively new in the, at least in the world of football. In endurance sport, we've really been, nutrition has been a huge component for a long period of time, but really understanding how the game has evolved as well, where there's more high intensity, more sprints. The calendar, as you mentioned, becomes more compact. We have more matches. It's more congested. So nutrition starts to play a larger role into making sure that our guys are prepared to perform at a very high intensity, and then also recover from that high intensity if we're going a Saturday to Wednesday to Saturday again, for example, playing in multiple competitions throughout the season.
And for the kids that are tuning in, we know we have a young audience that are trying to get into sports. I highly recommend you listen because you're getting some expert analysis here from Connor, who can tell you what you can possibly do at home to follow a good model of our great athletes at LAFC. You mentioned this was something for endurance sports. I know you have a cycling background. Was that how you kind of got into this in the first place? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think nutrition was actually initially like a pretty selfish endeavor for myself and my cycling performance. So I spent about 10 years as a competitive cyclist, mostly in Northern California, and early on in that, we can call it a career, even though it wasn't professional. I was at a regional development camp with USA Cycling, and a nutritionist came and spoke to us, and I was just like fascinated by the entire conversation. So after that camp, her and I worked together throughout my quote unquote career to help support me, to help me understand how much energy I needed, how to prepare for races, how to recover from races. And then when I realized that cycling wasn't going to be a career of mine, I remember emailing her and just saying, hey, how do I do what you do? Because it was nutrition was the sort of like co-passion that went with cycling.
I have to clear my plate a little bit with sports. I used to watch Tour de France all the time. I loved it. And I was always, and I wonder if that's a great launching point, because I'd watch these guys go 60 miles a day up a mountain and then do the same thing and over 30 days or whatever it was like. And you would see them eating a lot during that broadcast. And I was like, wait, when's a good right time to eat? Obviously, that seems like an incredible launching point. And maybe you pick things off that cycling tree as it applies to soccer or any other sport that a performance nutritionist would be. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you have to look at is to be a good performance nutritionist, you have to understand the physiological demands, basically what is required of the body to perform a particular sport at a high level. So you have to understand what makes somebody tired, what are the demands of the competition, right? I mean, you mentioned the Tour de France. Okay, so these guys are going to go almost 21 days straight. right? And I think they have 2 off days in that 3-week period. So sometimes 60 miles would be a very short day, right? But the 5-6 hours a day, and then have to go again the next day. So you take nutrition and understand at the extreme level what those guys may need. And then you look at footballers and say, okay, our most challenging week would be something that might be a Saturday to Wednesday to Saturday again, right? So almost 3 matches in a time period. So that nutrition is going to look a little bit different, right, than what a Tour de France rider is doing, who's racing for 5 to 6 hours, versus what a guy who's playing 90 minutes 3 times a week. But almost the component of recovery becomes so important, because in a short window, you have to recover from that match, and then you have to prepare for the next one. So take a guy who's going to start all 3 of those matches. His nutrition is going to look not exactly the same in terms of total energy, but in terms of composition, in terms of focusing on carbohydrate, it's going to be very similar to what maybe a guy who's racing the Tour de France could be, albeit at a quite a bit of a lower level. But still, we understand what that mechanism of fatigue is, and what the physiological demands of a football match is.
It's fascinating. And like we say, carbohydrates or proteins, and when you get that, when's the right time, and how close. This is all, it makes a lot of sense as how you can get prime performance from these athletes. And this is a tricky one, because you have different players, different age groups, with all different demands. And on a regular day at the Performance Center, which I have the honor of spending a few days there on a regular basis, you could have 30 or 40 players under one roof. What is the strategy for the group while giving the individuals their attention that they may need, something for, a kick over the edge or something very specialized?
Yeah. I mean, I think our kitchen staff, our culinary team, do a fantastic job of really, what I like to say we do is we provide an environment that's conducive to performance, right? So what we have available for the guys will support all 30 to 40 of them. The trick then is really understanding who needs what, and how soon do they need it. So there are some guys who are very, very they're in their zone. They know what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and they're feeling really good about it. And I feel really good about it. Those we don't have to spend a whole lot of time with. On the other hand, we have some younger guys who maybe this is their first professional club. Okay, how do we manage, and how do they understand what their training week looks like, to know, all right, this is going to be a really intense day. Let's have this on our plate for breakfast. Okay, that was a really hard day. Now let's make sure that you're eating enough for lunch. I think really around matches too is where you really want to check in with those guys, and especially like after a match. So try to understand, okay, now that we've had a day or two post match, how are you feeling? What are you feeling sore? Are you feeling tired? If we've had a day off, I really want to know about their match, what we call match day +1. What did you eat on that day? Are you well recovered, or do we have to play a little bit of catch up now, depending on when our next match is, to make sure that you're well fueled and well recovered?
And you have to have stories where these guys see results, right? Because when the younger players come in, they can't eat as well as they see under your watch, and all of a sudden they're like, "Whoa, my body's." So you get a lot of stories like that, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, I think nutrition is certainly is for me, it's a very important component, because it's my job, and I love it. I'm super passionate about it, but it is just one component of overall development. So it's fantastic to see how nutrition can act as a stimulus or an amplifier of what these guys are now doing in the gym for the first time, what these guys are now doing with more volume and more training. And so really this sort of environment that is doing everything in its power to support them, to develop them into a fantastic player. And so, yes, nutrition, I think, is one component of that, but it's really our whole team here that's supporting these players.
Of course. I like to hear this because, as you know, Connor, my body's a temple, so I soak this all in as well. It's amazing what goes on at the Performance Center, and you guys have them usually for breakfast and lunch. But what happens when they go home and they're on their own? And this is very important, because they want to be the best soccer players they can. So what advice do you give them, or how do you oversee that, so that when they're not under the watch of the club, they are eating right, they're doing the right things for their body?
Yeah, I think that comes pretty early on when we first get to meet a player, and it's really understanding, all right, what are you doing at home? Who's doing the cooking? A younger player, do you even know how to cook? Do you know how to, if I tell you, hey, I want you to have carbohydrate today, do you even understand what I'm saying? If I ask you, have carbs, have some type of protein, or are you looking at me like, I don't even know what you're talking about? And then I break it down. Okay, actually, I need you to have rice and chicken, right? So understanding what their home environment is, it can be tricky if some of our younger players, if they're still living at home and mom or dad are doing the cooking, and then they also have siblings and they're not just cooking for that player, or if a player is older and then they have a family and they can't just cater for themselves, right? They have to cater also for their wife and their kids, and so it's a every player is going to be different and every situation is going to be different, but trying to I would say like mirror what's going on at primarily around our lunchtime of how to build an appropriate plate, very much based on what that training was for the day or what that training is going to be for the next day, and then obviously of course if there's going to be a match, so just how they can understand how to periodize or change up their nutrition, and they should be able to mirror that by what they see in the facility.
That's great. Because once you get out of that facility, like anyone else, you're like, there's those pitfalls, and we know what's out there, and the players obviously have to do the work themselves, and clearly they have been doing that. I wanted to ask you about the arrival of Son Heung-Min. Obviously, someone who's maintained a high level of performance through his career, playing in the top leagues as he did in the Premier League, playing in multiple World Cups. And I think we can include this with Hugo Lloris, who followed a similar path with his time at Tottenham Hotspur. I imagine they have a pretty clear routine that's worked for them, but how does the club collaborate to keep them, a player like of that level, on the same track?
Yeah, I think you really hit the right word there with collaborate, because nutrition is always going to be a collaboration. So obviously I have my philosophies, my opinions, which are going to be based on the evidence that I've read, and but a player is also going to have their own experience, their past experience with a nutritionist, or things that they have worked for their in their career. So when a guy like Son or Ugo come into the club, it's really, for me, the first question is like, okay, what have you been doing, right? Like, tell me what you've been doing so that I can like jot it down, a little like secret notebook here about like what your strategy has been. Um, and hearing that strategy, it's like, okay, you do this, you do that, you prepare this way. This is what you prefer to eat after a match, and that's what you've been doing your entire career. Yep. Okay, great. We're going to support you and keep doing that. Um, those two guys in particular, coming from Tottenham, you know, I don't know directly, but I know through other colleagues who those nutritionists are that have worked with them, and I've connected with some of them, and knowing that, oh, look, you've been in great hands already, so let's just continue that. And so making sure that they have the food that they like and they feel supported in whatever sort of fueling product or anything else they need in a game day.
Connor Spencer, our LAFC performance nutritionist. Connor, let's have a little fun here. Let's imagine their next game, let's say it's in Vancouver. All right. They have a game tomorrow, and we got to prepare something that will prepare them for that challenge in particular. How does the game day or the pre-game day -1 prepare for that, and what would be on that plate for these players, you think, the day before?
Yeah. Day before, we're starting breakfast with either pancakes, French toast, or waffles. Um,
I'm in. I am in. I'm ready to run. I'm ready to go, Connor.
I don't want them to shy away from the syrup or the honey.
Why? Why is that? Is it?
Yeah. So what we're really trying to do is fill the muscle with energy, with carbohydrate. So with stored carbohydrate, and so trying to have foods that are going to be very palatable, I mean, like they want to eat them. Foods that are what we would call them to be rather energy dense, but on the somewhat like lower volume side, meaning they don't have to eat as much, but they're still getting a lot of bang for their buck in terms of carbohydrate. So we'd look at something like French toast, pancakes, or waffles. Okay, who doesn't want to eat those, right? Syrup is incredibly energy dense, and it's a great topping on side of that.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew?
On having a little bit of juice, another easy to digest form of carbohydrate, helps a little bit with hydration. And then, yeah, a little bit of protein. So maybe like 2 eggs would be appropriate, as opposed to maybe during a training week, we're going to do something that's going to be, 3 eggs and some potatoes and some avocado. So something that's just a little bit, you could call it a little bit heavier, but really it's a little bit higher volume food. So on a match day -1, we want breads, we want jams. Lunch, we want rice or pasta. Again, making sure that we're having some juice. Some bread would be fantastic. Yes, some chicken or some salmon would be great. Throw in a little snack there with like maybe a Rice Krispie treat or a little banana bread. Again, some more juice, some dried fruit would be fantastic. And then dinner time, nice and simple: pasta, rice, chicken. Really making sure, again, high carbohydrate availability, put that energy into the muscle so then they can sprint up and down that field the next day.
I just want to make this clear to the audience. This is the day before. So this is not, we made that distinction. It's not like this every day. But one thing about, we mentioned cycling, but some of these players, I'll take like a Mark Delgado or one of those midfielders. I mean, they log 6-7 miles. So they burn this fast. This is really important for certainly a player like that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then the trick becomes then having this high carbohydrate environment and high energy environment, and then also managing then for the guys who are going to be playing 90 minutes and then the guys who are going to be playing 15, right? So because then that starts to, those plates look a little bit different in that preparation. But what's interesting to consider is that you never know what can happen in a match, right? So someone may be called in 5 minutes into a match, and we would never want to sacrifice their preparation because we're assuming they're probably only going to play, right? So every player who's on the roster has the potential to have to go the distance. So we have to prepare them that way.
Fascinating stuff. By the way, is there a misconception with what the players consume? Obviously, we talk to them and go, yeah, I'm after the games, it's off. Oh, maybe I'll have a taco. But is there, or about, how much you can eat? Is there a misconception that you hear a lot, that you roll your eyes when you hear about what an athlete can eat or how much they can eat?
I think, yeah, tricky one, because I think like you mentioned, we were just discussing about a match day -1. Okay, so that's a very particular day of the week where it's not every day that these guys are pounding plates of pasta or tons of rice or tons of like sweets, right? So we really are strategically using that carbohydrate, those carbohydrate type foods during the week. I think the other one that is that, like, guys, okay, hey, I'm an athlete, so I need to be drinking sports drinks when I wake up in the morning, when I'm in the car, when I'm at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner, and then on the couch at home when I'm recovering. And I think that's a little bit of an error that, okay, yes, those sports drinks, they serve a particular purpose at a particular time, but we don't need to be drinking them all of the time just because you're a professional athlete.
Brilliant stuff. Connor, a young player out there starting his nutritional journey as a soccer player, let's call that specifically, what's one good piece of advice you would give to them to start it?
Yeah, I think with our young players, you guys are burning more energy than you think you are. And so where I will sometimes see some challenges is that there's a lack of preparation around eating. So it might be, oh, you know what? I just wasn't that hungry, or I slept in, so I skipped breakfast. Or yeah, like my training's in the afternoon and I ate lunch 5 hours ago. That type of stuff, I think you're leaving gains or sprints on the table because you're not well fueled enough. And so understanding that when you're young, nutrition and training, everything like just soaks into the body like a sponge. So you can really upregulate your adaptation, your response to training with proper nutrition. So nutrition can be one of those things where you don't feel it right away, which I think can make it sort of the long game. But be patient, have a good nutrition plan on a daily basis. Make sure you eat breakfast. Please don't skip it, because already then you're behind on energy. And just get after it.
Hand those shirts around the performance center. Don't skip breakfast.
There you go.
Connor Spencer, LAFC performance nutritionist. Great to chat with you. Hey, favorite part of the job, real quickly, being with LAFC?
I think it's got to be when you can get a change in someone's nutrition habits that then makes them feel better and makes them perform better. We were just talking about how nutrition is a little bit of a long game, and so it requires patience. It requires just sort of day after day after day. But if you can help a guy prepare for a match in a way where then in that match he doesn't cramp anymore, or he feels like, wow, I wasn't bending over out of breath and I could just sprint because he prepared in a better way, that's a fantastic reward. It's all about performance, helping our guys do the very best they can on the field, and any part that I can play in that is my favorite part of the job.
Great stuff. I thought you were going to say appearing on Black and Gold Insider, but that was a great answer. Connor, best of luck. We'll see you out there. Connor Spencer, our LAFC performance nutritionist. I am Max. That's all the time we have for this week. We'll be back every week on Black and Gold Insider. Until we meet again, let's go Black and Gold.